N5RTF, AA4FL.
AA4FL and 5RTF. Good morning, Jay.
Good morning. Good morning as well, Jeff. I got you checked in here on the net. Hope you had a good week. And sure you have a lot of the same human weather we are. I've been trying to get out in the yard every morning from about 7 to 9:30 or 10, and even that has put a hurt on me. we, this yard's gone crazy this year with all the rain. It's half acre and it's heavily landscaped, and I'm paying the price for it. I'm trying to be aggressive and cutting it back so I won't have to relive the experience and get better power tools. AA4FL and 5.
Yeah, Jay. We have a jungle next door on the two vacant lots. Probably 12 feet from the water line. It's very boggy. You can't get a lawnmower in there, and it just grows up with swamp weeds and all that. It's pretty. There's some nice flowers and things like that, and it's good for the wildlife around here. There's bird nests and all, but it still looks pretty bad at the edge of the property. I'm gonna have to do something once it cools off and the snakes are gone.
Taking care of overgrowth is a full-time job. Let's see who else is here early. Of course, we're almost at the top of the hour for the Medical Amateur Radio Council, DVNet. I do see Steve. K3SDT, I'll check you in, Steve. Anyone else would like to check in? Go ahead, AA4FL. All right, this is Jay, AA4FL, operating today from Hawthorne, Florida. My home QTH, a different room in the house, but all the same. Hopefully, Elon Musk has helped out in my Starlink connection is doing well. Just got through setting that up and doing the mesh network for it. But this is the Medical Amateur Radio Council DVNet. We meet every Saturday at 1500 Zulu, and it's our members and friends. So you don't have to be a member to be involved with the net. Let me let it drop one. We are using NetLogger as an aid, so you can see the check-in list. Also, using NetLogger, for those of you that are not familiar, there's an instant message window. It's the third little button. It says AIM window, and we chat in real time, and it's very helpful as we have discussions to offer support for the discussions or input prior to having to wait for a roundtable discussion. For example, here we now have Hilton, PY2BBQ, and we're checking you in, Hilton, because we see you're already done so on NetLogger. Meeting on the QuadNet array, of course, this is a complicated collection of servers and radios and hotspots. So make sure to pause, wait for the person before you after they unkey, give it a little bit of time, 3 to 5 seconds, and make sure it comes out every 2 minutes. Let everything sync on the system so all the different uh, interpretations of the digital modes here, the transcoding to occur. Let me let it drop one. If I find my mouse, I'll let it drop one. AA4FL with the Mid-Atlantic Radio Council, DVNet. If you can't find your mouse arrow, perhaps that's a sign that it's starting to get macular degeneration runs in my family. So maybe that's a diagnostic lead here for me, but maybe I just need to make the mouse a different color to make it larger. So we meet every Saturday morning, as we said, and usually there's not any emergency traffic, but if there is any priority messages, go ahead and make your call this time. If you're monitoring and you're not a Markham member, we'd encourage your participation. Feel free to check in. If you can't be here for the full net today, because it does go on for an hour and you just want to say hello, let's go ahead and have check-ins for stations that are mobile or a limited time. Go ahead and make your call to AA4 FL Net Control. Well, it sounds like we're going to have a congenial group here today. We'll go ahead and open it up for regular check-ins. Anyone else who's not already checked in, if you'd like to check in, make your call to AA4 FL this time. No additional check-ins heard. Four of us so far. There may be a few others that come on along the way. One new twist this week, monkeypox seems like it is making a little bit more of a presence. I haven't read the details on it, and I suspect that some of you know much more than I do and might be able to give us a report. Our next issue of the Ether is in October, so if there's a lot more activity in the next 4 to 8 weeks, perhaps we can focus on some scientific articles about viruses similar to monkeypox and monkeypox itself. Let's see if it's still a current theme in the next 4 weeks. We also have archives that, if anyone has, we have a lot of written archives. We don't have photographic archives. So, Chip, if you happen to have photos, let me know. Let's see if we can get copies of the photos sent to me and we can start publishing some, perhaps from the era when you were president, and I may have some I can dig out as well, even as far back as when you were president, Chip. This is AA4FL, and the first person on the list, Chip, and 5RTF. Go ahead.
AA4FL and 5RTF in a very small group. Um, Jay, I want to hear more about Starlink. Um, if you've been through the process, Sherry and I were talking about doing it because way out here, we're 17 miles out of the main part of town on a very narrow little strip of land, and our internet service goes out all the time. So we were thinking about doing that. But what is involved? What are the costs? What are the speed limitations? What have you discovered about it as you've set it up in 5RTF?
AA4FL, and I'm glad to share my findings and information because it's been a godsend for me, but it doesn't answer all my needs. Because I wanted to get a flex radio and flex servers are not supported in network. So it's a little tiny satellite dish. It's not really a dish. It's like flat receiver, and it just sits on a little tripod. You can put it at ground level. You can put it on the roof. It comes with a cable. I don't know if it's like 75 feet or not, or 50 feet. You can buy longer cables. So it has a Wi-Fi gateway. Well, it's not even a gateway. It's just a unit inside, strictly Wi-Fi. You can buy the equipment. You have to buy up front. It's about $600. You have to order it. That should be available in your area, but it may be a wait. They don't have the full network built out in terms of the number of satellites they're going to have, but and I'm not sure how many the unit is actually seeing. But apparently they're not letting units go out faster than the system can support the broadband connection. Let it drop one. I'll explain some more. I believe the goal is to have 200 megabits per second in that range. I'm getting in the mornings over 100, like 140. As more people come on during the day, more like 60, but certainly no less than 40 on these downlinks. Uplink 6 or 7 during those peak hours, 10 in the off hours. So again, I don't know how much they've got the system built out for their plans of satellites. Right now, they're launching about 50 each time, and they've had a number of launches already this year. I think ultimately, when they have their super heavy rocket, they'll be able to put up 300 at a time, and as they secondary payloads. Right now, it's going up as primary payloads, but I don't know the exact details for that. But they're building a constellation of satellites. Let me let it drop one. So I provide these details for all of us, not just for Chip. So it's got one cable that comes in. It was quite easy to put through my chase for my ham radio cables, and comes inside. You plug in the power cords. You plug in the cord from the satellite dish to their router, and it's Wi-Fi. I bought an Ethernet adapter for about $25 that gives you an Ethernet port. I haven't put in switches yet, but I will. Uh, so I'll have it throughout the house. Wi-Fi is no problem. I'm on one end of the house, not in the middle. I ended up putting in two extenders, mesh extenders, and everything's fine. I'm getting 60 or 70 megabytes per second throughout the house. So I hope that information's helped you. The service is unlimited. They don't throttle you back, and it's I think 110 a month. Any further questions, Chip? Go ahead. N5RTFAA 4.
To repeat the cost per month, and are there any other options that you can add on to it in 5RTF?
N5RTF AA4FL. They originally were going to do $99 a month, and I think it's now 110 instead. The equipment was $5.99. Might have gone up a little bit in the mid sixes. They do make a version for RVs, but I believe when they sell you this, it's supposed to be just one particular location. You're not supposed to move it. Although your houses are so close together that it may actually be fine. I don't know if you want to disconnect it as you go. As far as the accessories, they're all available online. It's mostly mounts and additional cables. What I did buy is the Ethernet adapter, which gives you one Ethernet port. I assume you put your own switch in. I was going to do that today. And what else? I just bought the mesh extenders. I don't remember how much they were, maybe 120. But not to talk business on amateur radio, but just so that amateurs who are in dire need of broadband and can't get it because they don't live in a neighborhood, and a lot of us don't with towers. Hopefully, this is general information that's well needed. N5RTF AA4FL.
It sounds very attractive. That's something we can do out here. The antenna points south, I'm guessing.
I it just points straight up. I think it must have micromotors and looks for them, and then locks in when it gets its best signal. Sometimes it takes up to a day. I think it might originally was pointed up at the sky. Mine's actually seems to be pointing slightly to the north. I think their original satellites were mostly at higher latitudes, but I don't know. And that was the reason why they didn't sell in our area. Your latitude's the same as mine. It could be on the wait list for a year though. Unfortunately, again, they only supply them as they feel they can support them. So they wouldn't want to throw too many units out there until they have the full system built out. Over.
Okay, so the dish actually tracks. You've seen it move.
No, I think once it's set up, I don't know if they're geostationary or not. I mean, there's probably so many of them that even if they weren't, they'd pass through. But I assume that it searched for the best position because again, it was pointed straight up. I don't think it constantly moves, but I don't know that. It looks like it's in the same position, but you'll have to read more about that online. Sorry, I don't know the answer. I don't want to use the wrong information. AA4FL.
Okay, but I appreciate it, and you know I love gadgets. Um, let me sit and listen and let somebody else come in if we got some additional members checked in. N5RTF clear.
Okay, thank you, Chip. Hilton's on call today, so he's doing procedures at the hospital. He just let us know on the NetLogger window, the message window, that he's got the YouTube transmissions going. Today's a work day for him. Let me pass it along to Steve then, K3FZT. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Jake. The group, such as it is. Uh, Interesting to hear about your adventure in space facilitated connectivity. Uh, I guess I'm fortunate to have Verizon Fios here and Comcast as well for backup. Anyway, beyond that, not much to say here. Reading about the viruses and shaking my head. Staying outdoors to the degree that I go anywhere. And trying to remain positive about the good things in life. Uh, Wait one. I promise not to go on at length, but um, in a period of about a week, two men who were dear to me have died. One was my senior resident when I was an intern, Dr. Jim Roberts, and the other was a musician and musicologist who really changed the world of Gaelic and Irish music in the United States and really around the world. And I was fortunate not to be the closest of friends, but in their circles, broken bread with each of them at different times. Mick Maloney was a fabulous musician, storyteller, singer, and you know, given that these men were not much older than me, it does cause one to contemplate one's own impermanence on the planet. But I'm choosing to try to focus on the good fortune I had to know them, to interact with them, to work alongside them, to play with them, and uh, keep that in mind. So that's all I have for today. I apologize for being a bit off our usual topics, but that's what's mattered to me in the last week, 10 days. This is K3F, who said,
Steve, sorry to hear about the passing of those close to you this past week. I can feel the pain of the loss. And unfortunately, at our age, our contemporaries, those at our age and a little older, we do tend to lose them frequently. Randy and I were talking about music yesterday and some of the birthdays of the musicians that were 78, 79 from the 1960s rock world, and we came to the realization that their voices are not going to be with us in person for much longer. Some of them will pass, and it was a sad thought. But as you say, they left quite a legacy, and their work lives in our hearts, and fortunately in the public domain for us to enjoy. But sorry to hear about those losses. I had contemplation on my mind as well. I had MRI yesterday for my kidneys. And unfortunately, there's nothing that is acute and short term okay. So, but always when you're around a hospital environment, which it was the Shands Medical Complex, you certainly get twisted into jolted into reality of life and appreciation because the ones around you are in much poorer shape than you are, and many of them are the same age. Are there any other stations that would like to check in at this time? This is the Medical Amateur Radio Council, DVNet AA4FL at the microphone.
And for TSC, if you can hear me.
Sorry for the delay, Jerry. I hear you perfectly. I was just checking you into the net. Hilton's not on today, so uh, why don't you go ahead and make a transmission? Keep it short at first. So we're sure everything's fine, but glad you're here today. Seem to be making the Quadnet array just fine. And for TSC AA4FL. Go ahead, Jerry.
Okay, AA4FL in the group and for TSC. Well, I'm a little bit delayed in getting started today because we had to deal with a leaky faucet, a nonstop toilet fluid valve leak, and the Pi-Star shutdown. And then I heard Steve's comments make me wonder if my own feelings represent the grieving for my own mortality, and I wonder if there's a way to combat that feeling as we get older. Anyway, anybody has any comments about it, that might be helpful. Maybe it's helpful to share back to you, AA4FL and 4TSC.
No, that recognition of the feeling of pain is quite palpable and I think normal and probably desirable. But I don't know how you don't obsess if it starts to be introspective. Being active, I'm sure, amateur radio, and usually you have enough positive events happen in your life, but that's not sustained. But we are fortunate to have a psychiatrist here with us, so I'm not going to take that soapbox. N5RTF, Chip, what do you have to say?
Well, I think that the traditional way of dealing with that is not psychiatry; it's religion. You have to believe that life has a purpose and that so does death. That it's another phase of life. No fetus, given a choice, would choose to be born. They like where they are, they're comfortable, and the world we're out there, even though it's rumored to be interesting, they have no direct proof of it, so they would just choose to stay in the womb forever if they could. Likewise, we would prefer to stay in this world forever, but there may be something much more exciting and interesting and better once we make the transition. So you can look at it that way. But it's basically religious faith that gives you the courage to go on. Let me wait one. Yeah, I'm very sorry for Stephen's loss. I've told Marco members that Rob Currier was one of my mentors. He was the chairman of neurology when I was a medical student, and I have some wonderful experiences with him, and was able to visit him just a couple of weeks before he died. And it really hurts to see people that you admire disappear. If you like Celtic music, let me suggest that you look up WWOZ. WWOZ, that is the listener-funded uh, public radio station in New Orleans. It's, some people feel, the best in the world. Commercial-free series of shows um, highlighting all of the different groups of people, cultures that made up New Orleans. And on Saturday morning from 6:30 to 8 is a Celtic show. So they archive them, so you can go back to the website and actually listen to the old shows. I would highly encourage you to do that. N5RTF.
Thank you for the information, Chip, N5RTF. Go ahead and let Steve ask questions or do any follow-up on the subject. K3FCT AA4FL. Go ahead.
Uh, well, uh, thanks everyone for the comments. Jay, Jerry, and Chip, appreciate it. Though raised with some religion, I have mostly in my I have in my adult life characterized myself more as an atheist and not as a believer in my contemplation of the others has begun the loss of these men has already begun a transition in my mind from sadness, sense of deprivation, to sense of a growing feeling of gratitude. And gratitude for the personal bits of connection, and gratitude for the larger contributions, each of them left in their own way, in their own microcosms of the world, and how I bump up against those and look forward to bumping up against those in times to come. So that's my take on it. I'll be turning back to you, Jay. Appreciate the space for this kind of conversation this morning. Really do. Back to AA4FL. This is K3FZ.
Well, thank you for sharing your feelings with us today. Steve, we're all going through those same situations, so it's certainly a positive to have a discussion, not only in support of you, but in support of ourselves. As far as having the religion, I guess philosophy and religion differ slightly, but you don't necessarily have to be pious to have the same thoughts. I mean, pious, I guess, would be whatever religion you practice, would be having faith in that what has been told to you is actually what will happen or what to look forward to. Others that don't have a particular faith or a different religion, I'm sure, have the thoughts. They may have a scientific bend, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's just science. I think it's just the natural man's desire to explain the world and to do that in a way that doesn't involve religion. So I think there's a lot of room for that for anybody that's agnostic or doesn't subscribe to a particular religion or doesn't, not believe in it's under the control of the Almighty Being. But it's, there's a world here of opinions on that. It takes some open-mindedness and respect of others' feelings, and everybody here is quite positive and helpful. I appreciate Chip's comments. I think through experience, you're hearing those comments, and I know how close Bob Courier was to him, and I'm sure there have been many others through the years, Chip, and you can mention others. Here, for us, it's been parents recently. We have two left, one parent and one cousin we're taking care of on power of attorney for. And we cherish their presence in their early 90s, 93 and 87, but we fondly remember those that have already departed, and having them with us is a reminder of those that are no longer here. And there's certainly a lot of joyful memories, and the pain of the time has passed, and the good memories have endured. So AA4FL, Jerry, why don't you go ahead and continue in for TSC AA4FL?
Okay, very good, Jay. Let me say that given that I'm at an age where I'm losing a lot of colleagues, classmates, high school, college, medical school, it the last one was really tough for me. But I have to say that Chip's analogy somehow I think is comforting. The sense that if we had our choice and we could stay in the uterus, we would stay. And that you don't know what's happening afterwards. And regardless of religion, I think just looking at it teleologically, at least for the moment, it seems that that may be a source of comfort for me. Who knows? Maybe maybe I will be able to deal with my feelings of grieving, and maybe some of the sense of depression that I have is the feeling that I'm anticipating my own demise, and maybe that's part of the feeling that I have. But somehow, I think that that's comforting, Chip, and I do appreciate it. Anyway, let me turn it back to you, Jay, as the master of ceremonies here. AA4FL and 4TS.
Well, AA4FL, so the more we have these friendly discussions amongst ourselves, the closer we get to each other, and the more meaning those friendships have. So I'm glad we brought up the subject here today, Steve, and we could have the discussion. Changing back to medical subjects, that perhaps for the ether in October, the monkeypox. Is there anyone that would like to volunteer to write the monkeypox section for the newsletter, the science, just resources and what's going on with monkeypox, and a brief 1 or 2 page description with a lot of support material. I certainly would appreciate sort of having a contributing editor. So, any of you feel like you'd like to participate, with more than one person, we can just make the issue about monkeypox and as part of the scientific discussion. So let me turn that back to Steve and ask that question of you. K3FZTAA4FL.
AA4FL, K3FZT. Run the question by me again, Jay. I got distracted for a moment
there. I'm starting to, say, A4FL, contemplate the October issue of the Ether. With Warren's editions, he has to do it about 3 weeks before I have all his material completed because he's publishing. For me, I can do it a week ahead. So basically, we have a 7 week time frame here. I'd love to have contributing editors. I often, as a dentist, end up writing on medical topics. I think hearing it from a physician, somebody would be willing to be a contributing editor, or I mean, just a contributor on the monkeypox issue, both the science behind it and perhaps similar viruses, the history, the status, and resources. If someone, or more than one, it doesn't have to be one person, if we'd like to submit material and have it to me, say, by the 15th of September, I would appreciate that. AA4, go ahead, Steve.
Well, fair enough. Ask, Jay. In fact, I salute you for doing so. But I've spent enough time struggling with my difficulties in writing that I made a promise to my wife that I would not take on other writing challenges. And yet at the moment, I'm right in the middle of editing with the goodwill of ARRL staff a submission that will be in the November, December issue of the experimental journal about Win-Win Gateway that I built. Uh, so maybe you'll see something in your email, but most likely not. K3F is it.
Understood, Steve, and thank you for the work you're doing in writing for the ARL experimental magazine. Do appreciate it. I know what it is like to be popular and looked forth when you are capable, and not only capable, but produce a good product. People trust you and rely on you, and you get asked quite frequently. So saying no is certainly not taken in a negative way at all. We know we have to balance our responsibilities. Jerry, how much do you know about monkeypox? And we can ask others in Marco, just we happen to be right here today on the net. Is it something you'd be interested in contributing to? M4TSC, AA4FL.
AA4FL and 4TSA. No, it's an area that I know really nothing about. In fact, I hadn't even heard about monkeypox until it came on the scene. And what I know about whatever principles exist are probably more than 50 years old since the time that I dealt with it. And I was thinking about, I always feel that when someone asks and throws out a question like that, I always feel that it's a challenge. But I started to think about the things that are coming up right now that we have to deal with. And it's just not something that I could take on at the moment, given that I'd have to educate myself on the entire field, see what I could do about writing something that was cogent. So I really think that it's beyond my ken at the moment. AA4FL and 4TSC.
QSL, understood. I was hoping Jack KD4IZ would be here today. Jack is a researcher, dental researcher, but biological, in a medical type vein, but his wife is an ID specialist, so we'll ask Jack and see if that's something he'll have time to make a contribution. I make a whole issue about monkeypox, in addition about it, but got to pick a scientific topic, and it just seems like something that's timely. And I certainly, when I prepare these issues, they're juried. I mean, they're peer reviewed. I send them out to a couple of dozen members before, usually the leadership. They get a chance to look them over, but I feel better if a physician or researcher wrote about it. But again, we have other resources in Marcus, so I was just floating the idea, and hopefully you feel that that's a subject of merit for this edition. So I do have the archives of Marco. I was hoping to get some of those scans and maybe get them online and write about. I'm going to go through them and see what looks interesting. Sometimes when you go through these old editions of newsletters, and you actually find that history repeats itself, and there's a root involvement in Marco's past, and it's happened numerous times in preparing for an edition of the Ether that it stimulated a whole new discussion line based upon Marco's history. So I'll start researching that as well. And so far we're doing every other month. And then eventually I want to go to quarterly, but I don't want to push that on Warren since he feels comfortable with 6 editions per year. I'd rather have 4 editions per year than a couple of special ones if he needed to, of a timely nature outside of the quarterly. But that's a long-term goal. We're very fortunate to have Warren's expertise, so he can write on these subjects. I don't feel as comfortable writing on some of these subjects. It's not in my background. Well, thanks for everybody being here today. If there's any other discussion threads you'd like to pick up before we call the net to a close, make your call to AA4FM. Okay, very quiet. The fall is such a uplifting time. There are so many, I wouldn't say distractions, but so many activities, getting out of the house, so positive things. During the summer, when it's hot, you tend to be at home, and many of us, not everyone, of course. And you can be introspective. There, you don't have the distractions. College football hasn't started. NFL football hasn't started. Baseball's there. Hockey's gone. So baseball, certainly for those that follow it closely, I enjoy a good baseball game, but I'm not going to watch every day. So hopefully we have those distractions to help family get-togethers, holidays in the fall. So many religious holidays in the fall, which brings religion back into the equation and being comforting and social with others that are like-mindedness. So, thank you for joining us today, everybody. I'm going to bring the net to a close, and I'll hang around for a minute afterwards and talk to you next week. Thanks again to the QuadNet Array for supplying the technical expertise and allowing this to happen. This is AA4FL calling the Marco TV net to a close for this week. 7-3. And for TSC, AA4FL. Jerry, did you enjoy your company last week? And how far along is your daughter on your second grandchild?
I especially enjoy dealing with my first granddaughter because I have to tell you that she is the happiest child I have ever encountered in my life. And I have encountered lots of kids because I used to teach, and that was before I went to medical school. And after medical school, I did a rotation through pediatrics, and I used to comment that the kids weren't the problem, the parents were. But nonetheless, she is the happiest child I've ever met, and she's going to be a big sister. The ETA of the second daughter, as we have now discovered, will be January 13th, 2023. So that's the day that we're anticipating. My daughter was reluctant to allow us to share that information because about 8 or 9 months ago she had a miscarriage, and she's got her fingers crossed that she won't run into any kind of difficulties this time. But as you know, it's a thing that can happen. It's fairly common. It happened to me and my wife as well. So, it's just the nature of things. But in any case, we're looking forward to it, and we're also looking forward to a visit from my younger daughter as well, who will be coming down here at the end of the month before her 4-month trip on business to Australia. And currently she's visiting with her in-laws in Baltimore and then going back to LA. So we've got a lot of activity going on and a lot of things we're trying to juggle at the moment. But thank you for asking, Jay. AA4FL and 4TS.
Fine business. Congratulations. I had forgotten. I'm sorry. You did mention that the reason for her visit last weekend was a reveal. One of the reasons. Congratulations. And yeah, of course that could happen. Both my wife, my mother-in-law, and my mother both had had miscarriages And there's two of us in each family. The third child would have been born otherwise. So even though it happened, it's an opportunity and a blessing for the baby that is born, and hopefully that memory of that child is carried forth in the newborn. Again, congratulations on that upcoming happy event, which we hope proceeds normally and healthily, and you get another extremely happy child. I took Max, my grandson, my eldest, just on a papa and grandson trip. We spent a night down in Titusville. Took him down to Kennedy Space Center for the day. I had a great time. So, he's a little young for that. He's 7. We started in the morning. He pooped out by about 2 o'clock. But it's okay. I didn't push him. I knew that was going to be a factor. But the time that he was engaged, he enjoyed it and was in awe and trying to build on that. I'll be watching him. So I'll be sleeping over here Sunday and Monday night. They're only about 30 minutes from us, 35 minutes from us in Gainesville right now. So, N4TSC, AA4FL.
AA4FL and for TSC. Yeah, I know you can always kind of string together all the happy events, and you hope that you're around to be able to enjoy them. I figure my new job is to spoil my grandchildren, and I hope I'm around long enough to be able to spoil them well. And I guess the thing that Steve was talking about earlier is probably the kind of thing that's affecting us, and I suspect affecting me because of my age. I'm older than you, and we're dealing with all of the vicissitudes of life, and there are so many of them that are going on that it doesn't even register to me to think about complaining about them because they're all kinds of scattered things that are happening, and you keep trying to address them. But in any case, my daughter said that she didn't want to share the information about her now second, hopefully will be successful pregnancy until perhaps a week before she delivers, or maybe even till the day she delivers because of her job. And I try to respect that. So we tried not to share the information with any people that might somehow through networking be able to share that with her employer. And my son-in-law feels the same way, so that's one of the reasons why we didn't really talk about it very much. AA4FL and 4TSC.
Of course, I won't repeat anything with that in mind. And yes, the passing away of individuals and looking inwardly, and that becomes more frequent as more and more at our age passings occur. But I just focus on today. And then, as Chip said, if you have religion, you know that it doesn't. It's potentially, and even if you're not religious, potentially you don't know what comes next. And in the case of someone who believes in heaven, then being rewarded for good deeds in life, and assuming you're a good person, you feel pretty comfortable. Even for those of us that don't necessarily believe it from a religion, you think there's justice and fairness in this world, and if it is true, that you end up in the same place. So we'll see. I'm going to run here, Jerry. I'm going to be down there from the 8th to the 16th for a little over a week. Just coming in to do a few things. I haven't been down there about 6 to 8 weeks. wife had come down a few times, but I've been up here working. Let me say 7-3 and get on with my work here. Great talking to you, and have a wonderful week. M4TSC, AA4FL.
Yeah, AA4FL and 4TSC. Well, I suspect coming from Hawthorne and coming down to Delray area, it probably takes you 4 hours plus or minus, depending on traffic. And I just hope you are prudent and drive carefully and arrive safely and have a good trip. And if I get the Pi-Star to stay up, I'll be able to chat with you next week. I was wondering why the group of people I normally talk to on Friday were silent yesterday, and I discovered that somehow the Pi-Star had shut down, and when I recycled it, I was able to get it going, and I'm glad it's working between us this morning. So at least I have a source of effort to try to get the thing running again when the other group, the Francophone group, which is based in southern France, uses their networking on Friday. So I'm glad we got at least the attempt at resolving the problem squared away. Have a good one, Jay. Good to talk to you. AA4FL and 4TSC.
7-3, Jerry. This is AA4FL going QRT.